Well, good things come to people who wait, but better things come to those who go out and get them.
A very warm good morning to all dignitaries, guests, and delegates. I, Vatsal Parekh,
And I, Vrishti Panjoli,
welcome you all to this energetic platform of Inspiro 2020 on the second day of this fascinating event.
the time is 11 a.m. The weather looks perfect as the tailwind on our side is filled with vivid colors of culture. As we are about to land on the second day of Inspiro 2020.
Today, on board, we have with us distinguished personalities from around the globe who will share inspiring stories and shape young minds.
Get ready and brace yourselves for another day at Inspiro 2020.
So, Vrishti, do you know that 2.5 quintillion bytes of datasets are generated each day?
Is it? Oh, yes. To operate and handle these large chunks of data, it requires a huge expertise in the domains of big data and cloud computing.
But the fact that only 27% of women share leadership in the corporate world bothers me.
But if you look at the brighter side, the scenario is rapidly changing, and women have stepped up as equals to their gender counterparts. Since the last decade, the vibrant community of women is constantly using its diverse talents by leading in the fields of technological advancements.
So, defying all these challenges on our way, we are highly privileged to introduce you to our next speaker, Muazma Zahid.
Muazma Zahid is currently a principal engineer manager at Microsoft, having 13 plus years of experience in big data technologies and multi cloud platforms.
Dynamic leadership skills are portrayed in multiple forms, as she is the president of Pakistani Women in Computing, Seattle chapter lead for AnitaB.org, lead at Women Who Code, and Women at Microsoft.
So, grab your boarding pass as our captain on board, Muazma Zahid, will be cruising on raising the bars, women in leadership and entrepreneurship.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm welcome and introducing me. I am super privileged to be here to talk to you all on this amazing platform, Inspiro 2020. As I was introduced, my name is Muazma Zahid. I am a principal engineering manager at Microsoft and a leader in several diversity, equity, and inclusion organizations that I am very passionate about. A little bit about myself, as I was introduced. That I have been in the tech industry for over 13 years, which is really, really long time for a woman in tech. And I have had several challenges, several things to overcome. So in this session, I really want to share some of my advice, some of my learnings, and the things that I wish I had heard when I was starting my career. As I mentioned, that I am very active in several diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, which includes a nonprofit called Pakistani Women in Computing. It's a global organization with 12 plus chapters. We welcome everyone and anyone who wants to be part of any of our events. That includes in several like mentorship, resume reviews, LinkedIn sessions, and several things that we help the community with. I also lead the NITA.org Seattle community. So if you don't know about NITA.org, it's the biggest women in tech nonprofit organization. It does a Grace Hopper celebration every year. This year, there were 33,000 plus women and men who participated in that event, which happened a couple of weeks ago. I also lead the Women Who Code cloud track. So cloud computing, AI, and data is ingrained in my day-to-day work, and I am very passionate to talk about that. Passionate to help anyone who is in these domain and see where can I add value in your career. I also am very passionate on mentorship. So I mentor several girls and women and men also in remote areas, be it in Kenya, be it in a village in Pakistan or somewhere else as well. So again, super passionate about these efforts beyond my day-to-day work. And again, happy to answer any questions at the end of this session, and feel free to leave them in the chat, and I'll go through them at the end of the session. So let's get started. So the topic today is leadership, right? I want to start with this quote that I heard in 2019 in the Grace Hopper celebration that I was just mentioning. It was a talk on leadership. It was a workshop on leadership done by Jo Miller. She's a great author. Her book is called Women of Influence. So do check that out. And that book has a lot of great things that you can learn from. But what I really loved in that workshop was this quote that was mentioned, that see yourself as a leader now. Leadership is an action. It's not a position. A lot of us actually think that we have to get a fancy title before we actually start doing anything which is leadership. What I see in my day-to-day work, when I work with different teams, when I work with different types of engineers, when I work with program managers, product managers, UI, UX designers, no matter where you're coming from, what you're doing, leadership is something that's an action. It's not a position. You're not assigned a lead only then you do that work. You can be working on your piece of code, but then at the same time show leadership. So if you remember this particular quote and it stays in your head, I think that would be the essence of my talk. So remember that this is an action. This is something that you do in your day-to-day. When you are given an opportunity, you grab it, you take it, and you actually do the work. That's what leaders are. And leader is a person that people look up to. That person inspires them. That person is their coach. That person is somebody they turn to. So as in the introduction, it was mentioned that very few women are in leadership positions, and especially in tech, right? How can we change that? So I do believe that as a leader, if you have a seat at the table, bring another chair for a person who is from a minority, or who is another person who deserves to be on that table. So that's how you actually build other leaders, give others the opportunities, and give them the opportunity to rise as well. So again, I'll just repeat the same thing. Leadership is an action. It's not a position. Don't wait for a fancy title to show your leadership in your day-to-day job. If you're a student, if you're part of any of your youth organizations, or in your university, if you are part of any of that, you're already showing your leadership. So don't wait for a fancy title to actually show the leadership. Next one, I want to talk about 5 things that I have learned throughout my career, and I want you all to take that as a starting point on your career, or no matter if you're a mid-career or senior career or leader already, but think about these things throughout your journey. And these things are really, really important. They are important to me. They actually made me who I am today, and I would really like to share these thoughts with you. Number one thing, this is something very few people talk about. They talk about this thing called work-life balance. I would just pop that bubble right here. For all of you, there is no such thing as balance. It's always an integration. There are days when work takes over. There are days when life takes over. For example, if you have a sick kid at your home, or a family member who is sick, your life takes precedence over your work. Vice versa, if you have a deadline and something is coming up in your work, then your work takes over and you have to prioritize. So life is an art. This career is an art of actually juggling between your priorities, defining those priorities, and making sure you are on target towards your goals. So there is, just wanted to repeat that, there is no such thing as a balance. There's really hardly any days, if I look back in my career of such a long time, that I would say that everything was in a balance and I was just on it, right? That's not the case. It's always an integration. Sometimes you have to sacrifice one thing to do something else. So that's my number one thing that I've learned. And as a leader, when you are growing in your career and you're coaching other folks, remember this thing, that expect from other folks also that they are also juggling a bunch of things. It's not just their work, it's a lot of other things that they are also bringing to the table when you're there working with you in your team. Number two, This is the really an important piece. A lot of us don't do this organically. A lot of us actually think that they have to network just because when they're looking for a job, or just because they have to find a referral or something like that. It's very important for you to build your network as you grow higher in your career. And sometimes this network happens accidentally. You met somebody, you have same thoughts, you actually connect with them, and you keep that connection warm. But sometimes people who are, let's say, introverts, they really are shy to go ahead and talk to somebody and say, like, could you be my mentor? Could you be my coach? Could you help me? They would lose out on some of these opportunities. So it's really important that you understand, this is a very common saying these days, that network is your net worth, which means that you have to work hard to make sure your network is intact. And as you go further in your career, you actually find people who are the right mentors for you, who are the right coaches for you, who are right allies, and who are the right sponsors. Again, understand the difference between these different types. So there are mentors, there are allies, and there are sponsors. Understand that, build that, and actively do that. It's not about connecting with somebody on LinkedIn and then forget about them until you need a job and then you connect with them again. Keep that connection warm, set up a coffee with them, set up a virtual coffee with them, chat about what they are up to, ask about advice, and that's how you keep your connection going. So really important advice for all of you, that build your network, work hard about that, and consider that as part of your work. Consider that as something you need to do, so when you don't have to actually wait for an opportunity to knock the door, it's that an opportunity will come to you if you already have the network. There's also a famous saying that it's not who you know, it's not who knows you, it's about who knows what you know. So when a decision is being made in a room, the people who are making the decision, what they know about you, it really matters. So in the old days, it was about what you know or how skillful you are. It's not the case anymore. So your network is really your network. I cannot emphasize enough on that, but that's one of the key learnings that I have, and I really wanted to share with all of you. Third, be kind. This is something, again, a lot of us forget about, especially women. We are really hard on ourselves. When we have a failure, we say, like, this is the worst, and there are a lot of people go through a lot of things in their life and they're not kind. I really wanted to put this out there, that be kind to others, and be kind to yourself above others. Be kind in situations when there's a new person who joined your team. Give them the time to actually adjust. So it's really important that you show that empathy. Empathy goes a long way, not just to others, but to yourself. Again, I'll repeat that: be kind to others as well as yourself. So forgive yourself if you made a mistake. It's fine. And what is the worst that will happen if you did something wrong? I look back in my career, there were so many times I did so many things that I shouldn't have done. And at that moment, it felt like, why would I do that, right? But now that I look back, I laugh at that. I enjoy just thinking about it. And I think about how I went through that, right? So one advice I have for all of you is to be kind, and be kind to yourself. That's really important. Number 4, ask for what you want. This is something when I talk to a lot of my mentees or people who are starting their career, they're thinking if somebody would come, let's say their manager or their skip level, and they would say, oh, you're doing awesome work, let's promote you. This could be about a promotion situation. It could be a project that you really want to work on. It could be anything. And it could be something personal also, in relationships also. So it's really important for you to say it out loud, what you want. And nobody can read your mind. There's no brain readers out there. Maybe there are, I don't know about them. So it's really important for you to actually say what you want and make your case about it. So let's say if you're talking about a promotion situation and you really want that promotion, then work hard, document all the things that you have done, and go in your one-on-ones or when you talk to your manager and talk about the things that you've really done that prove that you're ready for that next level. So ask for it. And again, as I said in the previous point, what is the worst that will happen? They would say, no, it's okay. You'll try again. And if that team is not the right team, you move to another team and then go ahead and try that over there. So it's important for you to understand that, again, nobody over the time in many years of experience would come and give you that next big project or next big step that you want. You have to go and ask for it. You have to work hard for it, and you have to make your case for it. Again, do your work. Your work should shine and should be there. Of course, people will start noticing that if you're doing that. When there are situations when you have to really go and ask for it, nobody can read minds. Last advice that I have for all of you, and this is something I see a lot of our youngsters are doing that, and that's really, really great. This is something that I really felt like it was not there a few years back when I was looking back. When I was looking for mentors, there were very few people in the industry, just because, like, as a woman in tech coming from Pakistan, there's really hardly very few role models out there, right, that I could connect to and I could ask. Things like that. So if you learn something new, it could be a skill. You don't have to be senior person in a very fancy company to actually help others. You could be a second-year student. You could be somebody who knows something that somebody else doesn't know. So help others in your way, and that kind of help goes a long, long way. People that I have helped still reach out to me. I'm still connected to them. And then people who have helped me are still connected to me. And there are several times that we bounce ideas of each other. We learn from each other's experiences. Some of my mentors are now my peers, and there are things that have changed over time. But it's really, really important to, again, if I summarize this slide, that network that you have, and then the people that you help is the ones that would stay with you. Those are the ones that you will stay connected with, and those are the people that you would really call your tribe, or would really work with you when you need something as well in future. And that, again, could be, this advice is true for personal life as well, and this is really, really true for a professional life. And I really wanted to share with all of you today, so you can keep that with you and understand that these are the things that have helped me in the career. And of course, I'll take questions at the end. If you have any questions about some of these specific things, how do you do that? I would be happy to answer those. This is one of my mentors' slide. This is a slide actually taken from her, and she talks about this thing called be courageous. A lot of people say that be fearless, right? That's not true. Again, I'm just popping that bubble for all of you. Everybody is afraid of something. It's really hard to actually overcome all of our fears. We are all afraid of something. There was a time in my life, and I was really, really afraid to go in front of people and do a public talk like this, for example. So in those times, what you need to have is courage, is that courage to actually take that first step, to have that courage to do what you want to do. And slowly, you train your brain in a way that you actually get to that point. So very, very important advice that I got, and I really wanted to share again with all of you, that in times when you feel really afraid, when you feel you have that imposter syndrome, which is like, I can't do that, I'm not good enough, make sure you tell yourself that yes, you're good enough, you can do it, and get that courage from either within yourself, or a friend, or a buddy, or a mentor, or a coach who can really push you and actually provide that courage and support that you need at that time. So be courageous, take that first step, take that first action that you need in your career, or in your if you're a student in your university, if anything you're doing, so take that first step. Let's talk about another thing, which is, again, really important, which is goals. A lot of people that I talk to, they talk about these big things. Let's say they want to become a data scientist, they want to learn cloud computing, XYZ, AI, any of the fancy terms that you hear around that. What are the buzzwords? Everybody wants to just go and do that, right? What is really important for all of you is to actually dig deep into your own skills, is to understand what you are good at. What are your goals? I do this exercise every 6 to 8 months. I actually write down on a piece of paper my goals. And those goals are a few different types. There are these short-term goals, and there are these long-term goals. And I actually am super organized, so I actually have certain categories within them as well. There are must have, good to have, and aspirational goals that I have. So examples of those goals, for example, a short-term goal could be, I want to go and write a blog about something that I recently learned or something that I've recently done. So that's a short-term goal. I put it on paper and I hold myself accountable that I'm going to do that. And I actually define certain end date or target date for that also. Let's say in 1 month, I have to do that. It could be something like I want to learn something new. So for example, I'm working on a framework and there's a new framework that just came out, or there's a new library that came out. I just want to go and try it, right? So I put that out there. I put that as an action item for me to track, and I actually track myself how I'm going. Sometimes people are really good just by being accountable to what they put down for themselves. Sometimes you need somebody else to be accountable. So if you have a friend, again, a colleague, a mentor, somebody who you can share these goals with, you don't have to share all of your goals there, but you can share some of these goals that are your targets that really you want. And then ask them to check in with you every 3 months, every 2 months, every 1 month, whatever your frequency is to meet with them, and see where you are. So they can keep accountable for your goals. Then you have these long-term goals. These long-term goals are your aspirations, your things that you really want to do. It could be something like you really want to become a subject matter expert in deep learning. It could be something like you want to learn something. It could be something like you want to learn skiing. So any expertise, anything like that, that's your long-term goal that cannot happen, let's say, in a few months. It might require you 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, even more than that. So write it down, put your goals in a way that you are accountable for that, put some timelines for you. And if you have time, do this in a way that you can define what is must have, what is good to have, and what is something that is aspirational in nature that might not never happen, but this is something you really want to do. So put it down on paper, or in your computer, or any of these days everything is online, so you can put it out there and keep yourself accountable for it. So I cannot emphasize enough on these goals. Why they are important is to understand where you're going. And I understand a lot of people go through different transitions, right? For example, today you could be a software engineer, tomorrow you want to switch to program management or something else, right? And your goals might change, which is fine. But you, at that point, when you're making that transition, make some goals for you for the next change, so you understand what you need to do to actually be successful in that next role. Again, if you have no goals, it's, I think, again, famous quote, if you don't know where you're going, you will never end up there, right? So you need to put yourself accountable for some of these goals and actually go and write them down. I do it very, I would say, rigorously. I do it every few months. I actually look back. I actually put myself accountable. Some of these goals I share with my mentors, and I think it's really important if you keep track of them. And it will help you in your long-term career. The other thing is a thing that we do. A lot of companies do that, especially when they're launching a new product, right? If let's say you have a startup, you will do this for your product, which is a SWOT analysis. So you talk about your strengths, you talk about your weaknesses, you talk about what the threats are for your product, and you talk about the opportunities, right? We do this for product. How I look at it is I do this for myself and my career. I do this on a regular basis, where I look at what my strengths are, what I bring to the table, what is unique about me, which others don't have, right? That is my personal brand. That's who I am. So when I'm talking about those things, those are my strengths. Then the second part is really, really important to understand your weaknesses. It's really hard for you to know that. So always ask. Sometimes you really know what your weaknesses are, but it's really, really important if you can go and ask your colleagues, maybe your manager, maybe some other people also, to go and ask them to give you feedback. What are the things you should work on? Again, if you don't know what you need to work on, then you will always think that you are the best, right? So it's important for you to actually, again, write down those things, think about those things, and map them back to your goals. For example, if I have a weakness in certain thing, let's say I'm not good in testing my code. I'm just taking a random example. So I should put a goal for myself to understand the test frameworks, understand the automation testing, understand some of those things, so I can do that better, right? Again, if I don't know that, I will never do that. So these things all map together. Then what are the threats, right? So if you are in a particular team where you're working on a project, what are the threats to your career in that sense? What are the threats in your team per se? What are things that you should be aware of if you're underpaid or overpaid or things like that? What if the team is completely wiped off? What will you do in that situation, right? A lot of us saw that this year because of COVID. There were a lot of jobs that became redundant, or they were people were not people were kind of let go, and other things happen, right? So it's important for us to always keep an eye on those threats, things like things that you never thought about, and things you actually even planned about that they might still happen, right? So again, thinking about those threats and having a plan A, plan B, plan C, how many number of plans is important for a long-term career. And long-term career, depending on wherever you are, it's again important to understand your threats. And last but not least is opportunities, right? So as I talked in the beginning of this presentation about leadership skills, right? What are the opportunities where you can show your skills? So let's say if my strength is really good, that I'm really good in communication skills, and I'm really good in collaboration with several other teams. So automatically, I have an opportunity to become a team lead in my team, where I can collaborate with other teams and I can focus on the work my team does, and I can actually promote my team's work in other teams as well. So I have this opportunity to put this out, and I can actually go and talk to my manager and say, are you looking for a team lead for our team? Do you need a team lead? Can I take that responsibility, right? So going back to my previous advice, ask for what you want. So there is an opportunity. If you see that opportunity in your team, you can ask for it, right? Understand the opportunities beyond your current work as well. So again, important thing. So if let's say you are a really good data scientist and you know everything in the work that you're doing, understand the applications of your work outside of your organization as well. What is the industry doing? Where is the industry going? And map that back to your knowledge. It's very important. As I mentioned in my intro, I've been in the tech industry for 13 years, right? When I started my career, it was in databases, and it was mostly relational databases because everybody was learning that, and that was the thing to learn. There was no NoSQL back then. There were few, but they were not famous. So everybody started learning that. So my first job out of college was actually in that. A few years later, there was this big hype about big data. So everybody started to move up to Hadoop, to some of these big data platforms. And I of course, was one of them. So I started learning that, and my team and I went through a bunch of trainings on that. And then a few years later became cloud computing. So last 5 years or so, it's everybody who, if you're not on cloud, part of your company would be on cloud at some point in future. So it's very important in personal life also. If you use Google Photos or any of those things, your data is actually on the cloud already, right? So understanding of these things is important. So understand those opportunities, not just from the team or the work that you're doing, but what is the trend? What is the industry trend? Where are things going? And align yourself. And then map them back to your goals. So if you see that you have a particular knowledge and a strength in something, and there's a new thing that comes out in the cloud computing world, every month there is a new service that comes out, right? So how do you keep up with those things? How do you make sure your skills are up to date with the rest of the world? So again, understanding the opportunities that are inside of your organization and outside of your organizations is really important. And let's say if you're a student, then again, it's important for you to understand your coursework and the opportunities that are out there, the projects that you're doing, and then talk to industry mentors and ask about what they think the upcoming trends are, what they think are things that are needed in the future, in the next 3 to 5 years, for example, from the workforce. So they should be able to guide you in those things. So I actually have, this is all the slides that I had, all the advice that I have for you, and really want to thank again Inspiro's team for actually inviting me to this talk. This is my LinkedIn, Twitter, and blog. Feel free to connect with me, and I would really like to answer any questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was indeed a very eye-opening session, and truly it raised the bars for all the women out there to excel in their.
Thank you, ma'am. So, ma'am, it's time for the Q&A session as our audience is desperately waiting for you to answer the questions. So, here is the question from one of our viewers. What are the challenges and learnings while working with different-minded engineers, different ideas for the same project, and different perspective towards the target?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. So it's very important for you to understand. So the number one thing for any team that I have done, I've worked with, or when I've even switched jobs, is to look for diverse teams. People with same like-minded folks, if you put them together, they will just produce something which is good for the team that they are aware of. So it's always important to have diverse opinions. So the number one thing is having different opinions is not a bad thing. It's actually really good for the work or the product that you're doing. The second part of that is how do you deal with it? So your part of the question I really liked about is like, how do you deal with those things? So there are several things under that. There are a lot of soft skills. Again, I don't think we'll run out of time if I talk about all of that: conflict resolution, communication skills, and all of that, right? What's really important is when you have different opinions, let's say you are talking about tech problem, what I really encourage my teams and what I do is we gather the folks in a room, we go to a whiteboard and actually just write down all the scenarios and ask people to contribute in that discussion. And when they contribute in the discussion, we write about pros and cons of all the solutions, right? Some of the solutions, when people start talking, they know right away that they are not going to work out because of XYZ cons. And then sometimes as a leader, you have to jump in and suggest some things as well, right? But always encourage the team to listen and listen from different diverse opinions. And the best way for me is always to understand the pros and cons. One of my mentors once said that there is no right and wrong architecture. There is always a pros and cons, right? There's no right and wrong solution in any of the technology. There's always a better one with some pros versus cons with something else, right? So if you are able to see through those things and you're able to communicate with the team effectively, I think you would be successful.
Thank you, ma'am. That was great. So our next question is, please share your life lessons for all the aspiring women looking forward to lead from the front.
So I think most of the talk was some of my life lessons, right? I think I would summarize in one way is don't give up, right? It's important that as a woman in tech, as a minority, could be men also, right? If you're facing challenges, don't give up, keep trying, change your direction, understand your goals and aspirations. Again, think about all the things that I talked about earlier and ask for help. Ask your mentors, ask for the support system. I also say this a lot in some of my talks is there's a support system that you're born with, for example, your siblings, the person you marry, or any of those. And then there's a support system that you can build. That could be your mentors, it could be joining any of the communities, it could be the Inspiro community, for example, right? The IEEE community. So you can actually connect with those folks and ask for help in those situations. So my life lessons would be there are people look at somebody's title and somebody's work and they think that they are like successful, right? Every step in the success, even to this day, there are several challenges that everybody goes through, and never think that you are different, right? So again, my life lessons is don't give up, keep trying, and be consistent. So there's another lesson. Again, I will just put more lessons out there. So my father says this a lot. He says that I've seen intelligent people fail, but I've not seen hardworking people fail. So if you are consistent and you continuously deliver on the work that you're doing, and keep working hard, there's less chances for you to fail versus if you let's say you're brilliant and you do great work once in a while, then it's not consistent. So I'll just leave you with those few words.
Thank you, ma'am. We surely think that the question of our viewers is answered. So the next question from another viewer is, can you tell more about women who code?
Yeah, WomenWhoCode is like in a global community. You can go to WomenWhoCode.com and you can find out there are more than, I'm trying to remember, I think there are more than 100 plus communities in several cities, and there are some track specific as well, and you can join any of those. And that would be a great way to actually get back, right? Give back to the community. So we have track specifics like cloud, data science, Python, and few others. And then we also have location based. For example, in US we have in Silicon Valley, New York, other places, and then we do have in India and other places as well. So yeah, definitely go check them out. And it's all free, so you can join the local community. You can become a volunteer in that community, and they're welcome everybody over there.
Indeed, ma'am, indeed. So our next question for the session is a very interesting question. Something that women can score in written examination, but when it comes to practical world, they can't. So what is your message for these people with this kind of thinking?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the message I would have is stereotyping, right? So I read this somewhere recently that by the age of 9, we have a certain stereotyping that we engrave in ourselves, in our kids. I'll give you one example. For example, if I'm taking my daughter to buy a toy, right? Most of my friends would recommend to go buy a doll for her, because we consider women would play with dolls and men would play with tools, right? So this is a stereotyping that we put in at very early age, right? So as a society, no matter where you go in the world, this is very common that you think of certain people in a certain way, and then you associate that for the rest of your life. For example, if I say the word homemaker, you will be thinking of a woman, and if I say a word, if I say a word, let's say a builder, you'll be thinking of a man, right? So these, again, as I said, these are the biases that we have. Some are explicit, some are implicit bias. Again, we'll run out of time if I start talking about all of that. There's a talk I did on this. I'll try to share a link later with all of you, which is about breaking through bias in tech. And I talk about all the different types of bias. I'll leave with the question was about a message. So my message would be to the folks to really check with themselves, like, why do they think that way? Do they think that because of a bias that they have, because this is something they saw? Because I know personally that a lot of women are really good at really, like, if they're really hard worker and they can do really great work. What they lack sometimes is the confidence, and that's where, as a society, we have to build that confidence. We have to build that support system around them, and we have to give them that tools to actually succeed. If we can't do that, of course, then I believe that we as a society have failed, right? So I think my message would be to check with yourself. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel the reverse also? Why do you feel men are good at something, or and not the other way around as well, right? So it's definitely some kind of bias that we have, and this something is ingrained in our brain because of how we were brought up and how we were doing certain things in our age.
Thank you, ma'am. We have one more question lined up. What would you give priority? Learning tech and making fundamentals strong, or growing bigger network?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think I should have emphasized more on my second slide when I'm talking about that. It's not either or, right? I think at different points in your career, you are looking for different things. So when I was talking about building your network, it's not always about building my network for my mentors, or sometimes I'm building my network for my tech learning, right? Because I really want to learn from somebody who's really done that. So I think, as I mentioned in that quote, also it's important for you to build on your skills. So that's definitely the highest priority for me. If I don't know what I'm doing, then building an awesome network is not going to help me, right? It's really important to really know what you really want to do, right? And really get those skills. So I would give priority on your fundamentals and building on that. But when you're doing those things, you can always build a network. That was my message, right? So let's say if I'm building learning about Node.js, I can go to a conference about Node.js and connect to other people or the community of Node.js and stay connected with them and bounce ideas from them, that this is the problem I'm having with my current application. How can you help me? And that's how you can stay connected, and that would be your network in future. And when you're looking for a role, let's say at a senior level in some other company with Node.js, right? You never know. So my point of view is that definitely you need to know what you're doing, and while you're doing that, build your network. Of course, that's how I prioritize it.
Thank you, ma'am. So this was a really very engaging Q&A session, and if there are no any further questions, I request Drishti to take over.
There's one last question, ma'am. If you have one message to all the participants out here, what it would be?
Yeah, I think my one message would be is to really really know who you are, right? And be yourself. So this is again a quote from a book, from a children's book. It's like Dr. Seuss book. So it says that it's only who you are, right? So there's only you who's you. There's nobody else like you, right? So know your worth, know who you are, right, and be yourself. We all again from coming from a society similar to where you all, most of the audience is right now, understanding we try to conform to a lot of those things, and we forget about what we are unique about. So if you understand your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, and build on those, and bring that to the table, bring that to the work that you're bringing in, I think you will be successful. And I wish you all the best on that. Be out there, don't be afraid. Be, as I said, be courageous, and hope to see you next event. And again, thank you so much for inviting me for this one. I hope that you learned something new, or at least some of this advice will stay with you. And yeah, that would be my one last advice to you, that be yourself.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You motivated us to think in the right direction. So, due to the ongoing COVID-19 scenario, we are unable to provide a physical token of appreciation, but the team of Inspiro 2020 is gratified to honor you with a virtual memento.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So to the participants, the feedback form link is given in the description as well as circulated in the live chat. So fill this feedback form so to ensure your participation and get e-certificates.
Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channels, because more such amazing and exciting events will be conducted in the future by IEEE ADIT Student Branch and ADIT CVM University.
So stay tuned, and we'll be live in a few minutes for the next session. Thank you.
Thank you.